Greetings, welcome, and thanks so much for joining me. It's Christian of Standing Stones Healing, founder of the Reiki Business Collective, creator of the Build Your Reiki Business program, and host of the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. And in this week's episode of the podcast, we're talking about teaching Reiki in your Reiki business, including a few tips for your Reiki teaching journey. And so tip number one, I really want to encourage you. So often when we think about teaching Reiki, we can be worried about doing a bad job, messing up, worried about, are we right to teach Reiki? Is this a good idea? What will our students think? Will we do a good job? And I really want to encourage you, first and foremost, that your students believe in you. The students who signed up for the course to learn Reiki from you believe in you. They would not have signed up to take Reiki with you if they did not believe that you have something to teach them. They would not have signed up for the course if they did not believe that you could do a good job. And they would not have signed up for the course, and especially given their hard-earned money, if they did not believe that indeed you could do a good job. And so I want to encourage you that even while you might not believe in yourself as a Reiki teacher, please know that when students sign up for your classes, they sure as heck do believe in you. And so it's very important for us to remember that anyone who signs up for a class with us is essentially saying, I believe in you. And so when we have anyone who signs up for our classes, whether they be Reiki classes or anything else that we might teach, I really want to encourage us to give gratitude for that and to be honored by that, because what students are really saying when they register for our courses, when they sign up for a class with us, is that they believe in us. And holy cow, isn't that just an absolute incredible, beautiful thing? The number two thing that I want to encourage you to consider as you are considering teaching Reiki, whether you are already teaching Reiki or you are thinking about it, is to consider your class schedule, your class structure, and to teach the class, to structure the class in a way that resonates with you and that feels right to you. When we set up a course that really is set up in a positive way for us, that means that we are going to be able to show up as teachers in a better way. So let me give you an example of this. I go to bed early. I go to bed at 9:30 and I turn screens off at 8, sometimes 8:30, no later than 9 o'clock, all right? Got to have screen-free time before I go to bed. It would not be a good idea for me to teach a class in the late evening. So it would not be a good idea for me to teach at 8 o'clock at night, definitely no way at 9 o'clock at night, and to make sure that I am not teaching at a time that doesn't align with me and that doesn't allow me to show up as my best. This not only applies to the time when we might teach, but also the structure itself. You know, of course, there's the very common weekend warrior kind of structure for a Reiki class, where let's say you're teaching Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 on a Saturday, 8 to 5, and then a Sunday from 8 to 5. You know, that is a lot, but that might work well for some people. Now, I've never taught in that way. I personally have never taught Reiki as a weekend warrior kind of class. I like to space it out and to have shorter class sessions and have them spaced out rather than one big class all at once. But if that works for you, then go for it. It has never resonated with me as a class structure for teaching Reiki, but it may very, very well indeed resonate with you. And if that feels right to you and aligns with you, then go with that. I think it's important for us to trust that if we set a schedule that works for us, that feels right to us, and that resonates for us, not only are we going to be showing up in the best way possible because that aligns with us, but also that the people who come to us are going to align with that kind of schedule as well. For me, when I teach courses, I'll teach courses for people all over the world. And I'll tell you, honestly, it's a little bit of a challenge to find a time that works for the whole world. But I'll often like to teach when I teach live in a group setting. I'll like to teach on the weekends in the afternoons, Eastern time, because then it's morning-ish for the Pacific time, and for European time, it's the evening, and so I'm right in the middle, and so I like to pick like a 1 o'clock or a 2 o'clock Eastern time on the weekends for my live classes in order to help catch the most time zones as possible. It does just so happen to be a positive time for me as well. Definitely not too early and definitely not too late. And so when we schedule in a way that aligns with us, we are allowing the space for students who align with that schedule and who can work with that schedule to be able to join as well. So whatever the schedule might be, don't be afraid to make it work for you, because as the teacher, your schedule is what really matters the most, and having a schedule that allows you to show up as your best, that's what really matters. My number 3 tip for you in teaching Reiki is, one thing that people are often worried about with teaching Reiki is creating a manual. Oh my gosh, I got to create a manual. That's so scary. That's so much work. Now, the truth is that creating a manual can be as much or as little work as you want it to be. And so creating a manual can be very laborious. Your manual can be hundreds of pages long. Your manual can have all kinds of graphics and colors and pretty pictures. And your manual can be very in-depth. You can print your manuals out. You can spiral bound them. You can have them printed by a printer. All kinds of ways that you can do your manuals. And you can also keep it really simple. We can learn Reiki without a manual. It's absolutely possible to learn Reiki without a manual. And so you could argue, you could say we don't even need a manual when we teach Reiki. Now, I personally do provide a manual to my students. I think it's helpful. I think it's a good thing to do. And I think that many students expect a manual. And I think it's nice to be able to say that we offer one. At the same time, I don't believe that we have to create a manual that is pages and pages long. And honestly, you might have students who read your manual during the class or even not. I have had students in some of my classes not read some of my manuals, they have told me. But you might find that students don't read the manual at all after the class is over. And how many of us lose our manual, forget where it is, the dog ate it, or something else, right? When I was taking my Reiki trainings, all 3 levels, I didn't have an in-depth manual from my teachers. They gave handouts. They had supplemental readings for the courses, but I didn't have a big manual. I didn't have a quote-unquote manual. And I got a great training. My teachers were really great. I had excellent Reiki teachers. And so it is indeed possible to have a quality class without a Reiki manual. So I want to encourage you not to stress out too much. As our Reiki journey unfolds and evolves, as we learn more on our Reiki journey, we have more stuff to add to the manual anyway. And so you may very well end up changing your manual. I know that I personally have changed my Reiki 1 manual, especially I've made changes to it over the years. And so that manual is not a once and done kind of thing. And if that manual was really, really long, then it would take me a really, really long time to make updates and changes. But I keep it simple, and therefore when I make updates and changes, it's a simple process to do as well. But I think it's important for us to consider our manuals as kind of living, breathing documents, like the Constitution, that we can make changes to from time to time, and even that it's beneficial to as we learn more on our Reiki journey. There's another belief out there in the Reiki community that we should be using the manual that our teachers used and that our teachers gave us. For some of us, like myself, our teachers didn't supply us with manuals to then supply to students. And for some of us, we didn't like the manual that we received. And for some of us, many of us, we have learned more than we originally learned in our Reiki trainings. I know in my manual, my Reiki 1 manual, I include a lot of information that I was not taught, especially information about the Japanese roots of Reiki and some of the more traditional practices of Reiki. And so I include those in my manual where I did not learn them in Reiki 1. And so as I learn and grow as a Reiki practitioner, I learn and grow as a Reiki teacher. And so too, I want to pass that knowledge along to my students. Now, final tip for teaching Reiki, and I believe that this is really important, and that is practicing self-Reiki. I think it's important for us as teachers to be practicing Reiki and to be practicing self-Reiki and to be more and more committed to the practice and to our own journey with Reiki. Now, of course, we're all human and our practice waxes and wanes from time to time. I know I personally have a daily self-practice, but I'll tell you, for instance, today, I did not do my self-Reiki. I also did not meditate today, and I also did not do my Tai Chi today. Oh, I am not doing well today. Those are practices that I do mostly every day, but obviously some days I miss. And that's part of being human. But I do think that if we are teaching Reiki, and if we are encouraging others to practice Reiki, then I think it only makes good sense that we would practice Reiki ourselves. And so what are your tips for teaching Reiki? Drop it down below. Let us know. Diana, thank you so much for your comments and your suggestions. That's great. Do what works for you. Absolutely. You like shorter classes too, which is great. And you're an afternoon, evening person as well. That's wonderful. So please do share your tips for teaching Reiki with us, and tune into this week's episode of the podcast at standingstoneshealing.com/podcast. Sending so many blessings and best wishes to the teaching of Reiki.